Hey everybody! Today I'm going to show you how I make the professional pouch by Lean Mean Sewing Machine. This is a finished one already, so you can see what the end result will be. Here's the front, okay, and then the back, and the inside. Ooh. All right, so I've already started. Got all my supplies cut out. So here we have our front and our back piece, our insides, the corner pieces. One is already done. I'll show you how we do that with this piece here. Our zipper with our tabs, zipper tabs already on them. Our clips for the other vinyl corner piece. And our little clasps that will go there on the end. So we'll get started. With our front piece. So here you can see, I already did one corner. Here's the other corner. I use a quilter's tape. It's a wash away double-sided tape. And I've marked it here with a pen at 1 inch. Because it's vinyl, we can't pin it down. It will create holes that will not go away, unlike, other fabrics like woven. Okay. You don't have to use the quilter's tape. I used to make these without the quilter's tape, but since I've discovered this product, I feel like it's made my life a little easier. Okay. So now we get to sewing. So I would like to point out on the panel pieces that I actually make mine a 1/2 inch bigger than Lean Mean Sewing Machine does for her patterns, for a couple reasons, and I'll point those out when we get to that spot. I do keep the same height though on the panel, which is 4.5 inches. We're going to sew our corners on. So to find the middle, so we can see where our vinyl pieces meet. You could also do this out of fabric. If you do this out of leather, you're going to have to make them probably about 1 inch shorter both ways, because you won't need to fold over. You could probably do that with vinyl as well, but because they have that weird edging, the backing, the woven backing, I always fold mine over just because it looks nicer. And that's my cat. So what I do here is I take my bottom and my top piece, and this will help align the zippers and the vinyl pieces and stuff later, and just snip a little corner from each side when you fold it over. Okay, you can see on both. And then I take my vinyl piece, line it up, and there we go. Ta-da! Okay, and then so because I've made the panel wider, it's not gonna meet on the other side, or the height. So when you clip the panel, the vinyl corners on, it's going to look like this. So we can do those on both. So you should have about 1/4 inch open on both sides of your panel, like this. Okay. Now when we sew the tops down, I do a 1/8 inch from the edge You could also, if you wanted to, use the vinyl tape on both sides of these, between the vinyl and your panel. I'm choosing to not do that here. And remember, when you're sewing with vinyl, you want to use a longer stitch, because a smaller stitch can kind of perforate the material and could lead to a tear later on. Okay. Okay, so you can see I have one side done, and clips will sometimes leave these little divots from the little grippies on the inside. That's okay, this will go away. At least they shouldn't. If you get vinyl, make sure you do a marine vinyl with this woven back on it. Other vinyls I find won't be as high in quality. I say you get what you pay for in vinyl. So I will put money into vinyl. Especially if you're not using that much. It's an accent piece. You don't want that small amount to be ruined, and that will mess up your whole bag. Okay, so the other corner. Also too, when you sew with vinyl, you notice here I am just using a regular foot. Some people have walking foots or rolling feet. I find that marine vinyl doesn't stick to the foot like some other vinyls will. The cheaper vinyls tend to be a little more grippy on the feet. So here's the front panel is done with the corners. We snip off the extra pieces here. Okay, and then if you have, for some reason, it didn't align right, that's okay. It doesn't have to be super perfect here. If you want to, you can trim the extra. And then I, for good measure, like to use my Fray Check. You can see I use it a lot. For the corner stitches here, that will just help secure the stitching and make the bag last longer. And I just do it on the corners at the ends of my stitches. Okay. You can also do it across here, since the vinyl is going to give it a little pull. Not much, but I like to be safe. Okay. Now we're going to attach our zipper and one of our inside pieces. For the zipper, I make my zippers at 5.5 inches. I feel that gives a good end result on the ends here. It makes the corners a little more boxier. Okay, so, and then same thing I did with the panel here with the little cutout. I'm going to do that with my zipper and with my panel piece, so that way I know that the centers are lined up correctly. Okay, so fold and snip. Don't snip too much. If you don't want to snip it, you can always use a pin or like a chalk marker. I haven't had any issues with cutting out just a little bit. Okay. So I do both sides, so you can do them to both panel pieces, or sides rather. Okay, and then I do that with my inside piece. Okay, so again, the top and the bottom. Same with the zipper. So then, I always put the zipper and on the same side you're gonna have the clasp. So that way if it's hanging on something, when you go to unzip it, you got a little more of a handle to help you unzip the pocket, or the pouch rather. Okay, so to get it started, I always pin one side to the panel first, and then I will pin both panels together. Okay, and then I'll pin the ends. Then pin the rest of it down. I also use a regular foot when I'm sewing zippers. I don't use zipper feet, even though I probably have a billion from all the sewing machines I have collected over the years. I pretty much just stick with the regular foot for everything. All right, so panel's done, and we'll sew on our zipper. Gotta pull this down as much as I can. Come on, zipper. What are we stuck on? Nothing. Okay. Alright, so since I don't use a zipper foot, what I do is I move my needle over as far to the left as I can. And that gap there, here you can see is 1/4 of an inch. Should be 1/4 of an inch to the end of the opening on my zipper foot. It might be different for some other zipper foots, but I know that's where mine ends. So I use that as my guide, as my width for what a regular zipper foot would probably do. Okay. Come on, thread. All right. And usually when I get about halfway, I will lift my foot up to pull the zipper pull back to the other side. Okay, then finish off the rest. Okay, so that front panel is done. Some people at this point will do a stitch along the top. I will wait until I get the other piece down, and then I will just stitch around the zipper part and not on the actual edges here, because I feel it looks nice like that. So Get our other panel pieces, again with the same fold over and cut the edges, or, you know, pin or mark it. And with our back piece, same thing. Okay. Align your zipper and your panel again. Pin the middle. Pin the ends. Same with the other side. Okay, so the zipper down. If you're wondering what kind of machine I'm using a Singer Fashion Mate 237. I believe older machines are the best. You don't have to have an industrial machine to sew bags. I mean, people have been sewing on regular sewing machines forever. Okay, pull our zipper back over. Finish off the end. Okay. Ta-da! There's our inside. And our outside. And then we're going to sew on our little clasp. I used this little handmade tag as my little strap for the clasp. You don't have to. You could use ribbon. You can use, you know, I don't know, some people use parts of the zipper that they've cut off, or the fabric, or even the vinyl. This is just what I do here. Okay. And I always put my tab, or my strap for the clasp, right at the end of the corner piece that's folded over. And then I pin it down. And I zigzag the crap out of it, because that thing is not going to come out. Okay. Gonna adjust the machine for zigzag. And away we go. This is another reason why, or one of the reasons why I have it, so that my panel's a little bit bigger at, was that 7 inches instead of 6.5 inches, because I want to have that extra support for the clasp in the bag. And then also too, for right here for the corner, so when we turn them out, there's a little more fabric here, so it's not going to want to pull out when I turn that corner over. So it's not going to put a ton of stress on that little, section of the inside. Okay, so now we're going to sew around the zipper here. I always put down a few pins just to help keep the panels on the inside folded down. Because if I didn't fold it down, I'd probably scoot it in like this, and then I'd have that weird top stitching on the inside. We do it for both sides. And then when I start the top stitching, I always do it on the end that has the zipper. You could do it on either end. That's just how I've always done it. Okay. And I always pull the zipper down just a little bit. And then I go around and I do about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the zipper tab to the edge of the zipper, to the folded piece here on the panel. And then same thing, I'll do 1/8 of an inch from the end of the zipper, and then 1/8 of an inch around from the folded panel piece. Take the machine back off a zigzag. And we'll do our top stitching. And again, on this top stitching, it's just my preference. Some people go to from one end to the other, one end to the other. This is just how I like to do it. And then go back over your original start. I always do a little back and forth. Okay. Snip our thread. Now on the inside threads, I generally don't snip it all the way down, just so it has a little extra to work with. And it won't matter because it's going to be the inside. No one will see it. If you feel like it is sticking out, like this is kind of sticking out a little bit, you can trim it after or before. Just trim it down half. And then I do the Fray Check again, so it stays. Okay. You can also do it on this end if you feel like that will help secure it. Okay. All we have left to do is stitch the panels together and then close the birthing hole. Easy peas. Make sure your zipper is open. If your zipper is not open, you're going to have a real hard time trying to turn that bag in right side out. And also make sure your clasp is inside. Okay. And because we have the vinyl here, remember we can't pin it because it's going to create holes in the vinyl. And another reason to do the snips on both panels is so you can line those up, the front and the back. So clip all the way around. And remember, if you've cut the panels to the size that I do, you're going to do a 1/2 inch on each side here, but a 1/4, which is what Lean Mean Sewing Machine has recommended for hers, on the top and the bottom, or I guess the bottoms. Okay. And then normally for birthing holes, I always do about 1 inch more than they recommended for anybody who does patterns. So if they say like birthing hole is 4 inches, I'll do 5 to 6 depending on the size of the bag, because you don't want to have to wrestle that. See, my panel clasp just came out. You don't want to have to wrestle that bag that you just made into submission. Okay. So remember, again, my panel, 1/4 of an inch seam on the bottoms, and on the sides I'll do a 1/2 inch. Recenter. Okay. And some machines have this on their plates. Turn the slide off so you can maybe see better. Nope. There's those little notches here. Those notches actually line up with the corresponding numbers up here, which is handy if you have to go to, you know, a 1/2 inch. There's that little slash down here. That's actually where your corner would line up at a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch here with your needle. So that way it would make it easier to turn. And here, I have it lined up right now because I know I'm going to do a 1/2 inch on the sides. So that's where I know where to stop. I don't know if I had this on my previous machine, but this machine I've been working on now for a year, and those notches are extremely handy. So remember, bottoms 1/4 inch, sides 1/2 inch. And I always do back and forth on the corners just to give a little extra support on the stress. Same thing with the ends of the zippers here. I'll do a little more back and forth. 1/2 inch again on the other side. Okay, more back and forth on the other zipper end. All right, inside seams done. So here, once again, I will do my Fray Check, especially on the corners. Okay, corners. And I'll do it on both sides. And with a zigzag on the tab, just to make sure. Extra support. Okay. Corners again. Corner, corner. And then I do it on my birthing hole where the seam will be, because this actually helps as a guide when it dries a little bit more. It will kind of have a small little divot in the fabric. It doesn't happen with all fabrics, but it sometimes happens and it helps. Okay. Then I snip the corners, not too close to the vinyl ends. It'll just help make the corners a little more pointed, like this right here. Because sometimes vinyl will have a tendency to want to round out. Okay, get rid of our end pieces there. And now, the birthing. So one of my tools that I use is a metal chopstick. Helps poke the ends out. Okay. And I usually poke the outside ends first before I put the inside panel or whatever fabric on the inside.